A number of you seem to have a few questions about the idea of taqid and mubah, or restricting the permissible. So let's talk about it. You might be wondering, how can we restrict what is permissible? Isn't that the same as making what is impermissible permissible, or permissible impermissible? Are we taking the haram and making it halal? Are we taking the halal and making it haram? No, we are not. And this is why we said restricting the permissible, as no one can take something which is haram and turn it into halal, or take something which is halal and turn it into haram. But it can be restricted due to time and place and circumstance and its connection to rights of others. So this can happen, for example, on a very high level. For example, in the beginning years of Revelation, the Prophet used to forbid that people would write down his own statements, because he did not want them to confuse his own statements with what was revealed from the Quran. However, later in life, and specifically in the farewell pilgrimage, he specifically ordered people to write things down so that they would be able to take it back to their people. And he sent lengthy letters as well in other times, which contained only his statements and not the Quran, showing that there was a restriction on writing down a hadith, or his statements, in order to preserve the right of the Quran in being known and taught and proliferating between the people. So that's one instance showing the permissibility of restricting what is permissible. Didn't make writing haram, it simply restricted when and why and how it was going to happen. Similarly, in the area of family law, there's the idea of coitus interruptus, or pulling out. So when a man and a woman are having sex and they don't want to have a child, what was one of the earliest forms of birth control? The man simply pulling out before ejaculation. So is this permissible? Yes, it's permissible, specifically from the hadith of Jabir radiallahu anhu in the Sahihain, that the Prophet ﷺ said, that Jabir said, "Kunna na'zil wal Qur'anu yanzil, فبلغ ذلك النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فلم ينهانا." That we used to pull out while the Quran was being revealed, and that reached the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he did not forbid us. Meaning that if this act was specifically impermissible, haram, then there would have been a verse of the Quran that was revealed about it, or the Prophet would have told us specifically that this was not allowed. He, however, did not do that, but he restricted this practice in another hadith of Umar that's found in Ahmed as well as Ibn Majah, that نهانا النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أن نعزل عن الحرة إلا بإذنها. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم forbade us from pulling out of our free wife except by her permission. So if you're married and you want to pull out, then you have to get the permission of your wife, because having a child and procreating is, number one of the main objectives of marriage, and number two, it's something that is a joint right between husband and wife. So planning for children has to be discussed between husband and wife. Therefore, if one of the spouses does not want to have children at that time, that needs to be a discussion, and them saying to themselves, and specifically the wife here, saying, look, I want you to do this, or I don't want you to do this, is a right of hers. So therefore, it should be fulfilled. And in fact, in another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, إن أحق الشروط أن يوفى بها أو أن يوفى به ما استحللتم به الفروج. The rights which have the most right to be fulfilled are those by which you have permitted someone's private parts. Meaning that if you're agreeing to something at a time of marriage, in a marital contract, it has the most right to be fulfilled. Therefore, if a woman says, I do not want my husband to go and take another wife while he is married to me, she has the right to do so. Does that make the act of marrying another woman haram? No, but it does make it a breach of contract. And if they negotiate what that breach looks like, then that's what will happen. So if a woman says, I don't want you to marry anybody, and if you marry if you're married while you're married to me, then you have to grant me a talaq. What does that mean? Well, if he has to grant a talaq, that means that he's at fault, and that means that he pays damages, and that means that he pays nafaqah, he pays maintenance for her during the divorce period and sometime thereafter. If, however, she said, I don't want you to marry on me, and if you marry again, then this gives me the right to leave the marriage, then he can't be forced into a talaq, but she can claim a khula', which is when a woman initiates divorce, and therefore she would be the breaching party, and she wouldn't get the maintenance that's at that time, but she would be able to leave the relationship. And even if she said, for example, if you marry again, then not only will you grant me a talaq, but you'll grant me some other form of monetary compensation or whatever, that would be permissible as well, as the marriage contract is just that. It's seen as a contract. This goes back to one thing that Hafiz Naveed talked about in the Marriage Masterclass, and that is, how do we conceptualize what marriage is? Is it a holy union, as is in heaven, so shall it be on earth, or is it a contract between two consenting individuals for the purposes of peace, harmony, procreation, and companionship? There's a lot that can be said about that. So I hope this clarified the issue for you. I hope that you can understand now where this position is coming from. No one's saying that the haram is become halal, or that the halal has become haram, but the halal can be restricted at times due to time, place, circumstance, and the rights of